In this video, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of selling your home with solar panels. Hi, my name is Tasha, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the pros and cons of selling your home with solar panels. Solar panels can be a great way to save on energy costs, but there are some things you need to know before selling your home with solar panels, so just stay tuned and I'll tell you all about it. So when selling your home, it's important to know the pros and cons when it comes to solar panels. So let's talk about the pros first. So the pros of solar panels is the fact that it can increase your home's value. However, that can, vary according to the buyer. So sometimes they look at it as a negative thing, even though it should increase it. A lot of the times it won't increase the value unless it's completely paid off. So of course, the buyer is going to look at this objectively, though we would, really appreciate the fact that it would, increase your home's value. Sometimes, you can run into problems with the sale, if it's not paid off, if it's lease or liened. Sometimes that can bring up issues, especially if it's liened with the lender, because of the fact that that will appear on the title. And so the lender really looks at that whenever they're looking at the mortgage and giving the buyer a loan, because of the fact that usually that comes first before the mortgage is paid off. So the lender will want that paid off before closing. So that's one thing you're going to want to look at to see if it makes sense for you to pay that off before closing. And if you get a buyer in contract and you're responsible for paying for that, then that could be a sticking point within the contract and may end up leading it to your home not getting sold. So knowing these things up front is really going to help you. You're going to want to have the paperwork ahead of time and talk to your lease company to look at the documentation and see how hard it would be to transfer that lease over to the new buyer. So just ask them, like, hey, how long is it going to take, because I'm about to put my home up for sale. How long will it take to transfer the lease over? And see what the stipulations are, because sometimes depending on each company, it could be different, because some companies have different stipulations for transferring it. And just make sure that it can be transferred, because sometimes you can run into problems with that as well. So I would really, really recommend that you do pay it off if you can before you even put the home up for sale, so that way it's more of a value to your home rather than taking away from the value, so you don't have to worry about that. But if you can't, you'll want to have the paperwork ahead of time. Send it to me. I can put it in the MLS, so the way the buyer has a chance to review those items prior to even placing an offer, so that way they know what they're getting themselves into. Also, we can negotiate this up front too, so that way we know who's going to be responsible for the lease. Of course, if the lease is transferring to the buyer, then obviously it's their responsibility, but sometimes they can try to negotiate that while they're in the contract to see if you'll pay for any of it, or maybe you come to an agreement to where you're paying for half of it and the buyer pays for half of it. So, there are several options when it comes to solar panels. So don't get discouraged if you do have a home that has a solar panel. We can help you figure that out. Also, another point is to have all of your utility bills, or at least your energy bill, ready, so that way if the buyer does ask you for that while you're in escrow, or even beforehand, they may ask you for that beforehand, it just helps to give them an idea of what their savings could be. So having a couple months of those utility bills to be able to provide to them will be super, super helpful. So those are my tips when it comes to solar panels. So if you do have a solar panel and you have a home to sell, I would be happy to walk you through what all of that looks like for you in your sale. And so there's a link down below. If you want to schedule a call with me, I would be happy to chat with you about what your options look like if you do have a solar panel on your home, or solar panels on your home. Don't be afraid to schedule a call with me down below. Thank you so much for watching.